I'll go for us. Honestly, no idea. We have 5 stores, so you give them all to start over the budget. You and also. No, so this is a big man, no doubt about it. This should not be given.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may we please rise for the national anthem. The national anthem, please. The national anthem, please. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we're very proud of our country and we wouldn't mind singing or reciting the national anthem ourselves. So after the count of 2, 1, 2. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please may we sit. The Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, represented by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Justice Reforms, Barrister Juliet Ibekaku Noagu, the Honorable Minister of Communications, Barrister Adebayo Shitu, represented here by the Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami. Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami is actually wearing 2 shoes, 2 caps, and 2 agbadas today. as the representative of the Minister of Communications and as the Director General of NITDA. The Executive Vice Chairman of the Nigeria Communications Commission, Professor Umar Dambata, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Mr. Paul Upright, represented by Mr. Oliver Blake. Mr. Blake is the team leader of governance and social development at the British High Commission. The United States Ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. Stuart Symington. The representative of the Chief of Defense Staff, Commodore Y.B. Wambai. The National Security Advisor, represented by Dr. Sharif Lawal. Dr. Sharif Lawal is Acting Director of Communications. The Coordinator of the Commonwealth ITU Group, Dr. Bashir Gwandu. CEOs of Organizing Partners here present, the CEOs of Digital Forensics, Dr. Ayo Omotade, the CEO of Pirate Group, Honorable Ejike Njeze, the CEO of Forensic Insight UK, Mr. Tunji Aworinde, all Directors General of departments, agencies, and parastatals here present and represented, the members of the Fourth Estate of the REM, all CEOs, chief executives of the sector, captains of industry, stakeholders, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Uwa Suleiman, and I am your mistress of ceremony for this occasion. The second annual conference on financial fraud and cybercrime couldn't have come at a more auspicious time, considering that the world is battling with a global virus or worm called WannaCry. Our presence here today is an attestation to the fact that this country is on the global pedestal with its counterparts in the fight for cybercrime. It is an attestation to the fact that this country is in tune with its global counterparts in securing our collective cyberspace. On that note, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me the pleasure and honor of calling on the representative of the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, Barrister Juliet Ibekaku, to give us her welcome remarks. You are welcome, Ma. A round of applause for Barrister Juliet, please.
Your Excellencies, I would like to stand on the existing protocols. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami SAN, who is currently in Austria for a very important meeting, I would like to present the welcome remarks for this occasion. I am delighted to welcome you today to the second conference on cybercrime, financial fraud, and other cross-border crimes. You may recall that we convened the first conference in February 2016 with a view to fast-tracking the implementation of the Cybercrime Prohibition and Prevention Act 2015 and to address the policy objectives of this administration, one of which is to improve the security of persons in Nigeria. Nigeria, like most countries in the world, is confronted with the challenges of protecting government data, citizens' personal information, online financial information, and critical infrastructure, particularly in the face of the threat of WannaCry and other forms of malware. It is against this background that the Federal Ministry of Justice, in collaboration with relevant government agencies and organized private sector agencies, came together in 2016 to initiate this forum in order to understand the cybersecurity trends in Nigeria and globally, and its impact on our national security. We're happy today that the Office of the National Security Advisor is represented by Dr. Sharif, and he'll speak to us more of what they are seeing in that trend. This conference is aimed to give participants the opportunity to determine the prevalence and patterns and analyze the causes and profile recommendations on tackling the security issues that confront the international community and Nigeria as well. I want to reiterate that this conference is an attempt by the Federal Ministry of Justice under my leadership, in consultation with law enforcement practitioners, academics, and policymakers, to deepen the understanding of the legal and regulatory framework on cybercrime and financial fraud in Nigeria. It is now 2 years since the enactment of the Cybercrime Act 2015. Therefore, we need all hands on deck to ensure that the Act becomes both operationally and technically effective. As you are aware, the Office of the Attorney General is empowered under Section 41(2) of the Cybercrime Act to undertake the following measures with regard to the implementation of the law. 1, to strengthen and enhance the existing legal framework. 2, to ensure the conformity of Nigerian cybercrime and cybersecurity laws and policies with regional and international standards. 2 or 3, to maintain international cooperation required for preventing and combating cybercrime and promoting cybersecurity. 4, to ensure the effective prosecution of cybercrimes and cybersecurity matters. And 5, to make regulations for the effective enforcement and prosecution under the Act, including the development of procedures to ensure that levies which are ordinarily supposed to be paid by the private sector under the Act are paid. Against this background, I wish to call on all participants in this conference to review the extent to which different actors have implemented the different mandates under the Cybersecurity Act, and to come up with a roadmap on how to tackle the challenges that still hamper Nigeria's efforts to strengthen cybercrime prevention and prohibition capabilities. Once again, I welcome you to this event, and I look forward to receiving your recommendations on how we can improve our current efforts to combat financial fraud and other cross-border crimes, including but not limited to money laundering, trafficking in persons, kidnapping for ransom, theft of crude oil, and terrorism. Thank you very much, and I wish you a happy deliberation today.
Another round of applause for Justice Juliet Ibekaku, SA Justice Reforms to the President. Thank you very much for that motivating speech. Permit me to recognize the presence of service chiefs here in our midst. You are welcome, sirs. I do not know the military code for welcoming uniformed men, but with all due respect, you are welcome to this conference. It is my honor and pleasure to call on the representative of the Minister of Communications, Barrister Adebayo Shitu, who is here in his capacity also as the Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency, fondly called the Digital Governor, the Headmaster of NITDA. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami to give us his remarks and declare the conference open.
All protocols duly and respectfully observed. Good morning, and may peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you. I stand before you on behalf of my Honorable Minister, Barrister Abdurrahim Adebayo Shitu, to declare this conference open. However, before I do that, I will begin by thanking the participants for creating time out of no time to be here. I know we have a very tight schedule, but we managed to be here in person, which is very important. And this is a clear indication that we have interest in fighting cybercrime in Nigeria. Furthermore, as we all know, the responsibility of fighting cybercrime in Nigeria or globally is a responsibility for all our countries. It's not just a responsibility for one agency or one office to do that, but it's the responsibility of all, because we have a role to play. And most importantly, if you look at cyber criminals today, they try to be ahead of all. They try to be ahead of IT experts. That is why IT security experts say cyber criminals are moving at the speed of light, while IT security experts are moving at the speed of law. By implication, they are ahead of all. They try to be ahead of others. They don't do things just overnight, wake up in the morning and start doing it. They prepare well. If you make a research for 5 hours to secure your cyberspace, they will work for 20 hours in order to see if they compromise your system. And one of the most important issues that we need to address immediately is to create awareness within our country. Many people are online, but they are unaware of that they are exposed to danger. As long as you are online, then it is your responsibility to make sure that you are well secured. Otherwise, you are exposed to danger. And I think the best way for us to start handling our challenges at hand, first and foremost, is to start organizing such kind of conferences where experts will come together, discuss their challenges, try to see how they can address them professionally. In addition, we need to create awareness, which is very necessary. In a country like Nigeria, many people are online but do not know even the ethics of how to secure even their personal email address, which is difficult for some of them. Any attachment that comes to them, they open it without even looking at the person who sent it. To even verify is not in their dictionary. Particularly if anything related to money is mentioned in that email, like pounds or dollars or naira, they immediately open. So these are some of the challenges we are facing, and I think we need to start organizing this kind of conference where experts will come together, discuss the challenges we have at hand, try to see how we can create awareness and make other Nigerians understand the challenge we have at our disposal, particularly with the issue of globalization today. You live here in Nigeria, but somebody from other country can penetrate your system, can compromise it easily. So, and I think it's very important for us to come here at the right time, discuss the issues. Finally, I thank the organizers of this conference for trying to think ahead of others by bringing stakeholders together to see how we can discuss issues and find solutions. And on behalf of the Honorable Minister, I declare the conference open. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, the Director General, National Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA. Another round of applause for him, please. Permit me to recognize the presence of the representative of the EFCC Chairman, Mr. Abba Sambo Usman. Mr. Sambo Usman, please stand to be recognized. You're welcome, sir. Without wasting much time, and since the Minister stroke DG has declared the conference open, permit me to call on the first speakers for the first plenary of the day. The session is chaired by the National Security Advisor, who is represented here by Dr. Sharif Lawal. Dr. Sharif Lawal is Director of Communications in that organization. Please, sir, could you come up to the stage? You're welcome. A round of applause for Dr. Sharif, please. And speakers in this session include the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Mr. Paul Arkwright, who is represented by Mr. Oliver Blake, who is Team Leader, Governance and Social Development. Mr. Blake, please. Also on this plenary to speak is the United States Ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. Stuart Symington. Mr. Symington, please, you're welcome. You're welcome. The chairman of the session will give us his remarks, and then the speakers will follow suit. Yes, please.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to stand on the existing protocol, and good morning. I'll start by conveying the warm regards of the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Mongono, who was actually looking forward to attend this conference in person. However, other pressing national engagement did not permit him to be among us here today. He asked me to present this keynote address on his behalf. I am Engineer Dr. Sharif Lawal, the Director of Communication and the Manager of the Nigerian Computer Emergency Response Team at the Office of the National Security Advisor. The address. I'm highly honored and humbled to be part of this second annual conference on combating financial fraud and cybercrime, to discuss a subject of crucial importance to our national security and economic prosperity. That is, protecting Nigerians' economy and critical infrastructure from the threat of cybercrime, the progress made so far. It is my belief that every opportunity we have to discuss cybersecurity, cybercrime, and their relation to national security provide prospect to all stakeholders to get new perspective and to synergize towards effectively managing the threats and the opportunities. The emergence of the cyberspace as the global virtual domain has made today's world a digitally hyper-connected one, creating a digital economy that is dependent on interconnected infrastructures that has effect on almost every aspect of our lives. Increasingly, nations are depending on the cyberspace to provide essential services, inclusive governance, improve businesses, and to foster economic growth and development. However, this development comes with inherent risk. The cyberspace can be employed for criminal activities with negative impact on the nation's economy, national security, as well as our safety and security. This negative consequence has been demonstrated several times in the past, the most recent being the ransomware attack, popularly known as WannaCry. This has once again demonstrated the capacity of criminals to orchestrate cybercrimes on a global scale, a reality that we must rise up to as a nation. Recognizing the increasing importance of the cyberspace to the nation's economy and security, government has developed mechanisms to make the cyberspace more secure for all Nigerians. Government response to the issue is in two main approaches. One, establishing legal and regulatory framework, and second, providing enabling environment for the technical aspect of cybersecurity. On the legal and regulatory framework, progress has been made, and they include the following. Government amended the Advanced Fee Fraud Act 2007 and the Evidence Act 2011 to accept the tendering of electronic evidence in court. Hitherto, our court system does not recognize electronic evidence, and that made it very, very difficult to investigate and prosecute cybercrime cases. Number two, government has developed a comprehensive national cybersecurity policy and strategy in December 2014. The strategy was developed for Nigeria through a multi-stakeholder engagement involving government ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as our partners from the private sector, civil society group, and international level. The cybersecurity strategy aggregates government collective responses towards mitigating cyber risk exposure of the Nigerian cyberspace, as well as exploiting associated opportunities. More recently, in May 2015, government passed into law the Cybercrime Prohibition, Prevention, etc. Act of 2015. This is to provide an effective and unified legal, regulatory, and institutional framework for the prohibition, prevention, detection, prosecution, and punishment of cybercrime in Nigeria. It is encouraging to note that with this, Nigeria became the 5th country in Africa and the 1st in West Africa to enact the cybercrime law. Indeed, this is a major milestone in protecting the nation's economy and critical infrastructure from cyber criminals by bringing them to justice. On the technical aspect of cybersecurity, some progress is made specific to the Office of the National Security Advisor include the following. The establishment of the Nigerian Computer Emergency Response Team, which is responsible for coordinating responses to cybersecurity incidences relating to Nigeria. I'm delighted to inform you that to improve the capability of the Nigerian Computer Emergency Response Team, NGSAT for short, currently a project is in progress to make the cyberspace monitoring platform of the NGSAT truly intelligent by incorporating big data and artificial intelligence capability. It will also interest you to know that the Office of the National Security Advisor redesigned and is developing the improved version of this platform locally in line with our local content policy. You know as much as I do that bringing out the foreign contractors to develop cybersecurity solution is as good as exposing ourselves to them. And therefore, it is very important that we develop solution critical to the government operation as well as the private sectors locally. Perhaps this informed the recent presidential executive order on the local content policy. Also, the Office of the National Security Advisor developed the National Digital Forensic Laboratory, which is currently being utilized by security, intelligence, and other law enforcement agencies for the investigation of cybercrime cases. You may recall that in February 2016, at the inauguration of the first conference on combating financial fraud and cybercrime, I mentioned the need to expedite the inauguration of the Cybercrime Advisory Council. I am pleased to inform this respected audience that not only was this council inaugurated in April 2016, but it also sat 3 times last year. The Cybercrime Advisory Council is responsible for advising government on measures to prevent and combat computer-related offenses, cybercrimes, threats to national cyberspace, and other cybersecurity-related issues. Also, the Office of the National Security Advisor initiated the process for comprehensive identification and developing protection plan for our critical national information infrastructure for all sectors of the economy. This is with a view to conduct detailed risk assessment and recommend for presidential order to gazette these critical infrastructures as national assets. Relating to this, currently, the office is on the verge of deploying the critical national information infrastructure documentation portal, based on which MDAs will be invited to document those infrastructure so that we can develop appropriate mitigation and protection plan for them. Furthermore, the Office of the National Security Advisor, in collaboration with our international partners, has participated in a series of capacity building training on cybersecurity for legal practitioners and law enforcement agencies. It will also interest you to know that the Office of the National Security Advisor is about to complete the development of the action plan for the implementation of the National Cybersecurity Strategy. The action plan outlines the suggested roles and expected contribution of various government agencies and stakeholders to meeting the ultimate goal of making the cyberspace more secure for all Nigerians. In the coming weeks, the draft action plan will be circulated to all stakeholders with a view to obtain their inputs as well as commitment in implementing the aspect of the National Cybersecurity Strategy that is relevant to their statutory mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, the inherently open architecture of the Internet and its associated information network means that no single sector or agency can collect and analyze all threats to its cyberspace at all times. Therefore, it is essential for all stakeholders to cooperate and collaborate in order to synergize for the fight against cybercrime. To make this synergy effective, the Office of the National Security Advisor recommends the following. Adopting a national collaborative approach to cybersecurity, with all stakeholders working together and sharing information about cyber threats. The hallmark of this collaboration is for each agency to diligently work towards implementing aspects of the National Cybersecurity Strategy relevant to its mandates. Also, the Office recommends the need to raise awareness among the general public on cybersecurity and cybercrime, as well as its mitigating measures. I commend the National Information Technology Development Agency in this regard, and we hope that more government ministry, department, and agency will key into the need to raise awareness of the general public on cybersecurity, internet safety, and child online protection. The review and update of standard and guidelines for developing and hosting government websites with a view to address persistent threats to the online presence of government agency on the internet is something that is long overdue. Finally, the Office of the National Security Advisor also recommends the National Cybersecurity Strategy that was set up a computer incident response team for each sector of the economy. Therefore, the office recommends each critical sector of the Nigerian economy to move ahead with the setup of the computer security incident response team so that they have a very good view of the cyber threats that are key to their sector. Cascading this cyber threat up to the national level will help us to have the necessary situational awareness that is important to fighting cybercrime and financial fraud. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, please permit me to reiterate the commitment of the Office of the National Security Advisor in cooperating with all stakeholders in fighting cybercrime in Nigeria. This issue is very important to national security, as it is central to making the Nigerian cyberspace and indeed the global cyberspace a safe and secure place to operate. It's on this note that I really commend the effort of the organizers of this conference, because this serves as a forum where we can discuss with each other and raise the necessary awareness that is key to ensuring that our presence on the internet is safe and secure. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, the representative of the National Security Advisor, Dr. Sharif, who has been speaking with us on progress made in protecting Nigeria's economy and critical national infrastructure from the threat of cybercrime. Speaking to us next on combating corruption, cross-border crimes and finance and financial terrorism, an international perspective, is the representative of the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Mr. Oliver Blake. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me too stand on the already established protocol. So I'm very pleased to be here this morning representing the High Commissioner, Mr. Paul Arkwright. As some may remember, he gave a welcome address at the first event last year, and had he not been travelling, he would have been again pleased to be here at this event. So let me present his greetings to you. We very much welcome this conference. These issues of cybercrime, financial crime, criminal financing affect all of us. No country is an island in such matters. I'm very pleased to hear the good progress that, Mr. Chairman, you were reporting from the Office of the National Security Advisor. So I'm asked to give an international perspective on combating corruption, cross-border crimes, and financing of terrorism. So I'll focus on one particular theme: why it matters internationally if Nigeria has a problem with financial crime, or indeed if any country has a problem with these issues. Is it not just a matter for Nigeria, or a matter for the United Kingdom, or for the country concerned? I think the answer is no. These issues go across borders and they affect us all. Now, the High Commissioner explained why corruption matters to Nigeria in his speech last Wednesday at the launch of the Chatham House report on social norms relating to corruption. It is the one main reason, in my view, why Nigeria has not so far delivered on its potential as a nation and still suffers from such terrible poverty and insecurity in so many areas. From the perspective of a development agency, this matters to us. Our job in DFID Nigeria is to help Nigeria, government and people, to reduce poverty and increase opportunity and prosperity. This is good for Nigeria and good for the United Kingdom. But what about more broadly? Any state that suffers from corruption and financial crime can be unable to fulfill its international obligations and can cause problems beyond its borders. A number of countries in West Africa fall into that category. Nigeria is in many ways a force for good in the region and could do more, but not everything is good. For example, the insurgency in the northeast has affected the Lake Chad Basin region. It has created an opportunity for terrorists to extend their reach. That is a concern to all of us. Conflict in the Delta impacts directly on UK commercial interests, as well as being devastating for the local population. Poor control of borders enables the trafficking of people and goods beyond Nigeria and into the UK. Looted funds from around the world make their way to the UK and in turn damage the UK's systems. British lawyers, accountants and bankers unfortunately get involved. This damages the British system and creates openings for other criminals to exploit too. Financial crime can destroy and damage government institutions and systems and create weaknesses for others to exploit. At the Anti-Corruption Summit held in London in May last year, some important commitments were made to tackling these issues, and many of which are now being implemented. So what would we like Nigeria to do to go further in tackling this problem? There's lots to be done, but let me highlight just 2 areas where Nigeria is making progress. The President of the Senate highlighted last week some important pieces of legislation which the National Assembly is working on. We heard the comment earlier that the government can only go at the pace of the law, whereas the criminals go at light speed. But where we can, let us speed up that process of law. Setting up an independent financial intelligence unit, as is recommended to the National Assembly, will ensure key information on financial flows is used effectively by the right organisations. Increasing the penalties for money laundering should deter looters from seeking to transfer that loot out of Nigeria. Setting up a proceeds of crime unit will bring more transparency and improved management of recovered funds and ensure these funds are properly used. So it would be good to see progress on this package of legislation. The previous National Assembly passed the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which speeds up the judicial process and prevents defendants dragging out trials for years and years. Very important piece of legislation, and we commend still the National Assembly for passing that act. So members of this National Assembly can demonstrate their commitment to the anti-corruption agenda by passing this important package of legislation. We've been pleased to see good progress on transparency of the budgeting process and commend the Senate President for making the National Assembly budget public. We commend too civil society groups who have immediately examined the budget and will help ensure that funds are well used. Public participation in the budgeting process is important to ensure funds are allocated to priority purposes and then to ensure they are effectively used. We've seen Nigeria take some important steps this year to improve public participation. These include the public hearing into the national budget and the preparation of the Open Government Partnership Action Plan. And at state level too, the public have been more involved this year than previously in the budgeting process. Civil society groups have been working with state assemblies to input to the budget process, to monitor procurement processes and to track use of funds on the ground. In some states, we're told this has never happened before. So we would like to see this partnership between government and civil society grow stronger, and would encourage civil society groups to learn from each other on how to influence budgets and monitor implementation. We've been pleased to see too that professional groups are part of this process. Professional groups such as lawyers, accountants and bankers are in some cases part of the problem by enabling the theft and dispersal of looted funds, but they can also be part of the solution by working with citizens groups to bring more transparency. So instead of hiding money, they could bring light to bear on where the money is and what it is used for. Fighting these issues of cybercrime, financial crime, of course, they said, goes beyond Nigeria and indeed beyond the UK. Even after we have played our part, transnational organised crimes require coordinated transnational responses. As organised criminal networks span the globe, efforts to combat them must likewise cross borders, so as to ensure that organised criminal networks do not simply divert their activities to countries or regions where weak cooperation means weak criminal justice responses. So let me conclude by reaffirming the UK's commitment to helping Nigeria tackle these issues as part of the global effort that is required. This is essential for Nigeria and equally of great importance to the UK and to all of Nigeria's international partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver Blake. I am sure Mr. Blake's speech has set some of us thinking and rethinking. Ladies and gentlemen, before I call on the next speaker, permit me to recognize the presence of the Executive Secretary, Pension Transition Arrangements Directorate, Barrister Sharon Kiazo. Barrister Sharon, please stand to be recognized. You are welcome, ma'am. At this juncture, allow me to call on the United States Ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. Stuart Symington. Mr. Symington is going to be speaking to us about the United States and Nigerian cooperation on combating cybercrime and financial fraud. Mr. Stuart, you're welcome, sir. A round of applause for Mr. Stuart, please.
Mr. Chairman, to you and to the National Security Advisor, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, officers, and members of the private sector who are here today. I have 3 messages, and you'll be pleased to know that all 3 of these messages have already been touched upon. The first message is this. As the previous speakers have said, we are truly in this together. This very second, all over the world, good people, men and women, in every country, are creating the opportunity today that will be vested in somebody's pension fund when they retire, using the internet as a tool. All over the world. The internet is like this glass, and into this fragile vessel, the hopes, the dreams, and the efforts of the world's people are poured. This is not the plastic of old. This is something that lights the way forward. But as I just did a second ago, one moment of inattention, one person anywhere in the world who is not careful can turn this vessel for the future into a broken instrument that can even be used as a weapon to undo. This can happen anywhere in the world at any moment if we are not able, with the help of the press that's here and with the help of all of you, to change this kind of an accident into this kind of a future. A future that can be held up and can inspire. We know this. But let's talk about the speed of light and the speed of law. The fact is, as every person in this room knows, no nation in the world, and not all nations, is kept secure by our military alone, although we owe them all an extraordinary debt. No nation in the world is kept secure by our police alone, although we owe them an extraordinary debt, or by our national security structure. There is not a country in the world that is kept secure day and night, year after year, by anything other than the people of that country. Every one of them. They are to national security what every user of a computer is to computer security. They are the critical link. And while it's true, as one speaker said, that bad guys will stay up 20 hours trying to fix a solution that good guys spent 5 hours to develop, there are always more good people in the world than there are bad people in the world. There are more good people in the private sector. There are more good people who have retired and still have families and pensions that they influence. There are more good people in every local government of this country and in every town and county of my country. So the challenge here is that. It is to set out the legal framework, it's to set out the rules, it's to put together those computer emergency response teams in every critical sector. It's to develop both nationally and internationally the tools that will work. But the biggest challenge of all, as we discussed when I first got here today, the biggest challenge of all is to show everybody what's in it for them. So let me share with you what's, I think, in it for Nigeria. Nigeria is not just the most populous nation in Africa. Nigeria is one of the youngest, fastest growing nations in this world. Nigeria is also a nation with exceptional capacity to do good with computers and the internet, software and content. Lots of people talk about the population of Nigeria. I'd love for you all to stand back and take into heart this notion. A little while ago, I'm told, that a man named Zuckerberg came to Lagos to meet with some young Nigerian programmers. After that visit, in which he helped develop a commercial relationship, drawing on the extraordinary talents of Nigerians, I was in Lagos talking to some people about the capacity of Nigerians. And he told me this story. He said a bunch of young Nigerian software programmers went to Silicon Valley in the United States. And while they were there, they were presented with a problem that some engineers there had not fixed. And a couple of them got together and fixed it. And when they came back to Nigeria, somebody said, "How was your trip?" And they said, "It was great." And they said, "Well, what did you learn?" And they said, "We are as good as they are." That's an expression that I've heard a lot while I've been in Nigeria. Nigeria is very much like the United States. There are an awful lot of people who believe completely in the Nigerian dream, who believe that they can grow up to be anything, and who have good reason to think that they can play on any playing field in the world. So here's the point. When it comes to the internet, when it comes to cyber, all of us are playing on the same field all the time. A 12-year-old woman, girl, boy, man, anywhere in the world can compete with and be in touch with and change what the entire world is doing. We are all holding that same glass, and we can shape what is in it and comes from it for good or for bad. What this means is that the challenges that you're wrestling with here today, to get the private sector and the public sector together, to get the public sector and the international sector together, to get all the good people together who do defense and who create wealth together. That problem we are wrestling with in the United States right now. The WannaCry virus has mobilized sentiment in the United States to get the private sector and the public sector working together in a way that other things had not. And we're going to keep working at it. But I just wanted to end with this note. We will work with you because we know that it is in our interests that you succeed. The great challenge, though, is whether our people, both in the United States and here in Britain and all around the world, will, with the help of the press, step up and make sure that they are the people who hold that glass that's lit with the opportunity to carry us into the future together and not break it because they don't load a patch or because, as you said, they open every attachment. Because they don't do the basic things that are the modern equivalent of tying your shoes or locking your door or taking care when you cross the street. But in this case, if you are hurt, we are all hurt. And that's why we are so interested in your success. And we always will. I am absolutely convinced that the transatlantic alliances that matter in the coming time will not just be those between North America and Europe. And they won't just be between Africa and the Mediterranean and Europe. But I'm absolutely convinced that this tie between North America and Africa, between the United States and Nigeria, will profoundly affect the future of the world. And in this world, the very fabric, the size, the hope will be changed by what we do together on the internet. And this conference and the public awareness that comes from it, and the previous one and the next one, may well determine the success of Nigeria and with it of all of us, as well as our partnership. So on behalf of my president, who I'm here to represent, the people of the United States, and all those Nigerian Americans who keep walking this bridge back and forth between our countries, and all the businesses that are here and that will be here, and all the people that we affect, I'm profoundly grateful to the organizers of this event, and to all of you gentlemen and ladies who have made this event a success. And I wish you every success while pledging to you every common effort that we can possibly make on behalf of ourselves in the future. Sincere thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stewart, for that graphic illustration, even though you had to break a Nigerian glass to make a point. But no, we forgive you. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Distinguished guests, please can we put our hands together for them as they move back to their seats. Thank you so much. The United States Ambassador to Nigeria mentioned that he is aware that there are some Nigerians who believe that anything is possible, who believe that the sky is big enough for every kind of bird to fly in. Ladies and gentlemen, one of such people is the Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami. And he will be speaking to us soon. On that note, permit me to inform you that there has been a slight change in the program because the DG of NIDDA has another engagement, a presidential engagement actually, but he has ensured that he comes here because the issues discussed here are very, 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 very dear to him. On that note, permit me to invite the chairman of the second plenary, which has been moved to the third, which has been moved to the second, Dr. Bashir Gwandu. Dr. Gwandu is coordinator, Commonwealth ITU Group, and he's chairing this session. You're welcome, sir. The keynote speaker is none other than the Director General of NIDDA, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami. Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami is going to be speaking on the role of NIDDA in developing technological capacity to deal with the threats of cybercrime and financial fraud. DG NIDDA, sir. The DG has been hijacked by the US ambassador. So permit me to call on the panelists before that discussion is over. We have Mr. Abdul Fattah Jimo. Mr. Abdul Fattah Jimo is the audit chairman of ISACA. Mr. Abdul Fattah Jimo, please come to the stage. You're welcome, sir. And we have the representative of the Nigerian Computer Society, Mr. Rogba Adeoye. Please, can you come up to the stage? The representatives of NCC, if you're in the house, please come up to the stage. The CEO of PyReach, Honorable Ejike Njeze. Okay, he'll be back shortly. He just wants to see the US ambassador off. And the representative of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Can you please come up to the stage? Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami. You are to speak on the role of NITDA in developing technological capacity to deal with the threats of cybercrime and financial fraud. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to open your ears and listen to the DG of NITDA. Thank you very much. Okay, the chairman will give us a few remarks, and then the keynote speaker will take center stage. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, we will, at this session, listen to the keynote speaker, after which the panelists will pass their own comments, and we can have questions and answers. So, without taking too much of your time, we're going to have the lead speaker speaking for a few minutes, and then we'll listen to each of the panelists to make comments against the paper. So let me take this opportunity to welcome all the panelists on this session, and in particular to welcome Dr. Isa Ali Pantami to give the lead, or rather the keynote speech of this session. Thank you, Mr. Pantami.
The British High Commissioner to Nigeria, the chairman of the session, all other protocols duly and respectfully observed. Good morning once again. I stand before you to talk on the role of National Information Technology Development Agency in developing and regulating IT in Nigeria, particularly with regards to the effort of the agency in fighting the threats of cybercrime and financial fraud. I think this topic requires nothing less than 3 hours to talk on it. However, I will make an attempt within the time frame to talk, and I do hope that you will appreciate the gist of the presentation. As we all know, that National Information Technology Development Agency is a federal government agency that was established in 2001, 16 years ago, and the act of the agency was passed into law in 2007, precisely 10 years ago. The responsibility of the agency, as in the Act 2007, under the functions of the agency, mainly deal with setting standards, guidelines, framework for IT adoption, deployment, and usage all over the country, and at the same time regulating IT in both public and private sector. Let me go through the Act briefly within the time frame. If you look at the functions of the agency in NITDA Act 2007, under Article A, the federal government of Nigeria has mandated the agency to create framework for IT practices and services all over the country. If you look at Article B, the federal government of Nigeria mandated the agency to develop guidelines for IT deployment and usage. And this has been emphasized under Article D of the same Act 2007. Under Article F, the Act empowers the agency to serve as the regulatory, or rather the advisory body, to both public and private sector when it comes to IT activities. Under Article G, the federal government of Nigeria empowers the agency to be the regulatory body of IT in the country. If you look at under Article L, the federal government of Nigeria empowers NIDA to legislate IT in Nigeria and at the same time to enhance the security of the country through IT and at the same time to promote the vibrancy of the sector. These are some of the key areas that deal with the responsibility of the agency. On 18th of April 2006, federal government issued another circular in which all MDAs are urged to go to NIDA to seek for clearance in any IT project. As long as the agency uses government money, it is mandatory for that agency to go to NIDA and seek for clearance before they embark upon any IT project. In 21st of June 2006, 2012, similar circular was also issued by the federal government of Nigeria, and in that with the emphasis of patronizing local content. And I think this is an issue which was discussed as well superficially by my colleague from the Office of National Security Advisor, in which all MDAs are urged to patronize local content development, local content infrastructure and services. And by extension, all MDAs are urged to go to NIDA to seek for clearance. In the same Act of 2007 of the agency, clearly states that any MDA that uses government money or that breaches the act of the agency can be sanctioned. And that could be in monetary form, or at least the chief executive can be imprisoned for 1 or 3 years, as the case may be. This tells us that the responsibility of the agency is a huge one. Looking at this briefly, we will clearly see that the federal government of Nigeria empowers NIDA to regulate and also develop IT in Nigeria. We are to regulate and also to develop IT in Nigeria. Looking at the topic given to me, we need to define some keywords. For example, like cybercrime. Cybercrime briefly deals with the use of computer to perpetrate and perpetuate criminal activities. A situation where someone employs or deploys computer to commit any crime, this is part, or to partake in any illegal activities, it is part of cybercrime. But financial crime, if you look at the Act of EFCC 2004, it clearly defines what financial crime is all about. It means a way someone follows to illegally collect money, illegally by going against the law. In any way somebody gets money by going against the law, he commits financial crime. So if you look at these keywords and look at the role of the agency, that is NIDA, to develop and regulate IT sector, then you will clearly see that NIDA has a role to play in these two crimes. First and foremost, cyber crime, and secondly, financial crime. Because today the most easiest way to commit crime is sometimes through online. That is the easiest way to do that. People can transfer money in billions online. That could be difficult in cash, but online is very possible. $5 billion pounds can be transferred online within a minute, but you cannot take it physically. So that is why committing even financial crime online is easier today. So the role of NIDA when it comes to fighting these two evils of cybercrime and financial crime, I will say first and foremost the agency begins by infrastructure. We are working on establishing public key infrastructure, which is an important component of regulating our cyberspace. And the project is ongoing. And I believe that if this project is completed, it will support the country significantly in fighting cybercrime and financial crime or fraud as well. Secondly, the agency established CERT, Computer Emergency Readiness and Response Team, which is being used in monitoring cyber crimes that are happening particularly within the country or even globally. We have many such in Nigeria. NIDA deploys one, and I believe Office of the National Security Advisor has one again. So as we said earlier, the responsibility of at least securing our cyberspace is not restricted to only one person or one agency. It should be the responsibility of all. As long as you know your act empowers you to play a role, then all stakeholders should come together, support each other, have a synergy to see how our country will be secured. And I think this is very important. And number 3, we also have a forensic computing opposite to our SAT, which is being used in forensic analysis. And it has been very effective indeed. In the place, even a mobile phone can be brought where that office can handle it and go through it and analyze it and bring out the result. This is one of the things that NIDA has been doing. And furthermore, NIDA has also been playing a significant role of recent of creating public awareness, because this is something that is very important. When you are talking about cyber security or cyber crime, what we need to emphasize is on creating awareness. Most of our citizens are not aware, are very unaware about criminal activities taking place online. And I think it's very important for all relevant agencies to be on board in trying to create awareness so that our people will be at least proactive when it comes to cyber crime and many more. When it comes to capacity building, the agency has been playing a significant role as well. Currently, the agency sponsored some young Nigerians, some young talented Nigerians to get cyber security knowledge in many disciplines globally. We have some students currently undertaking their MSc and PhD in the UK, some are in the US, some are in Canada, some are in Germany. All are being sponsored by NIDA. And this is an attempt to see that we build the capacity in-house, meaning that if they come back to Nigeria, they are to serve the nation by implication. And there is transfer of knowledge. So by implication, the knowledge they have been receiving will get back to Nigeria and other Nigerians can benefit from it. Furthermore, recently the agency sent some staff even to India, where they have undergone a training for almost 3 months on cybersecurity. And I'm glad to say that many countries participated there. When it comes to cybersecurity, the representatives of NIDA emerge as the best students in Africa. Around 20 African countries participated, but our representatives emerged as the best among them all. And I think this tells us that our future will be good as long as we continue to support and motivate them. So these are some of the roles the agency has been doing when it comes to all these things. And most importantly, we try to see that now our SAT is 24/7. We have been alerting relevant MDAs about any potential attack or ongoing attack when it comes to cybercrime and many more. Recent, I believe we all know what happened of WannaCry. Our country has been largely safe, but there are some minor attacks even in Nigeria. However, I believe most of the newspapers did not quote that statement correctly. We say the country was largely safe, largely. It doesn't mean that there was no any attack, but it could be a minor one. At least 4 agencies were affected as of yesterday. However, the situation is under control. But if you look at what happened in the UK, with due apology to the British High Commissioner here, in which most of their systems under NHS were affected, you will clearly see that at least in Nigeria, we deserve commendation. And if you look at again what happened in the US, with due apology to their ambassador here, I believe Nigeria deserves commendation. They were affected badly, but in Nigeria the situation is under control. And the credit goes to all of you, to all Nigerians, not to one person. So I think these are some of the things the agency has been doing to make sure that at least it contributes its quota when it comes to fighting cybercrime and financial fraud as well. Because of our time constraint, and I think I need to clear the screen here and shut down the lecture. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, the lead speaker, Dr. Pantami. I'm now going to call on each of the panelists to make a comment for a few minutes, less than 5 minutes at most. So, if I may, let me start with Mr. Adeoye at the experiment. Shall I bring the microphone to you? Is that okay? Okay, just take a seat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All protocol duly observed. Rogba Adeoye is my name. I'm from Nigeria Computer Society. And it is a big thing to be here today. And listening to what we've heard since morning and what the DG told us, I look at a critical side, and that is the awareness. If we have to pick the awareness, then those of us that are directly in the business, we know that awareness itself is not in isolation. We need statistics. I remember about 8 years ago, in Lagos, we run a radio program. And that radio program, then people were taking e-services not so serious. But a lot of fraud was going on. And Mr. Fatopon Sibia will bear me witness. Where exactly do we get the number of incidents? How do we know the quantum of attack? Thank God recently we are now having statistics from Central Bank. But then it's more than that. Either someone stole your money and you rush to the bank is not willing to assist you, or when the bank assists you, this disclosure affects their image so much that at times there is need for some concealment. And that is not too good. It means we need independent body to gather data. There comes in CPC. If we have Consumer Protection Agency Commission there, did they open any channel for reporting this? And if they don't open any channel, then I'm back to Dr. Pantami. All of us have to help them. We have to look, that is a critical area for us to gather independent data. If you cannot quickly know where to run to in NIDA, if you don't know what to disclose, but you can tell your friend, and you can go to CPC. Please, this is my problem. And if we have that data for us to work with, then our awareness will go a long way. As a group, we only advocate. And in the advocacy, the only way we can do that is to reach out. Either you go on air, either you go on TV, but I will give a plus to the DG NIDA. Just last week, he was on air, and he said, "What do we will establish a cyber crime department." Please clap for him. Because on NTA platform, and he said we've established that. Because looking at the mandate, when he was reading out the mandate to us, you notice one by one, the security emphasis was not actually on the new trend. And because of generic nature of IT, every day we are engaged with new things. Every day we are engaged with new things. So we have to prepare for the big threat. From UK ambassador, from US ambassador, from everybody that matter. The real problem is we are under e-threat, and no boundary. Does not know your room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adeoye. Now I go to the next speaker who will And then, well, because of time constraints, I'm advised that we're supposed to have 3 minutes for each of the panelists. So Jimo will speak next for 3 minutes. Thank you.
All protocols duly observed. My name is Jima Abdul Fattah Adeshina. I represent Information System Audit and Control Association, ISACA. I'm the audit chair. I believe the last speaker said my mind, and in conjunction with what the DG NIDA have said, I just want to mention, I just want to lay emphasis on two issues. Just like what ISACA is also doing, is to ensure that we collaborate with all necessary agencies to ensure that we disseminate information about cyber criminal, financial fraud, cyber attack, and the effect of it to the nation. There is economy in cybercrime. That is why the cyber criminals are always on the run, and they are always on it. So there is huge economy in it. Just like something I read recently, that Nigerians lose about $450 million yearly to cyber criminal. So due to the economy of this cyber crime, I want to lay emphasis on one issue, that we must try as much as possible to engage, to find a lawful way of engaging some of these cyber criminals. In Nigeria, I think some years back, even is an ongoing thing. There's something called Cyber Olympics, and we have many Nigerians that are representing, young Nigerians that are representing us in the world space. And when they represent us, they perform wonderfully. So I want to say that I want to say to the DG NIDA that we should find a way of engaging these guys. They are good and they can match the cyber criminals in their activities. So that's what I would like to contribute in this regard. Thanks so much.
So thank you very much. Now, next is Mr. Ejike. Please, as I want to suggest that we try and discuss the paper as much as possible, not what the organization does, the paper that has been, well, the comments, the key messages from the presentation of the Chief Executive. I think that's what I want us to dwell more on, and how people can benefit from some of the things, or how people can even contribute to make what they are doing better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Minister of Communication and DG of NIDA, all protocol duly observed. I will not take much time, as I'm given just 3 minutes to contribute to what the DG has already said. I believe that the DG has actually done justice to this paper, and other contributors, other speakers have actually touched on every aspect, the critical aspects that border on cybersecurity, cybercrime, and financial fraud. I believe this is a topic that concerns everybody, that we are all very much aware of. The question now is, how do we move forward? How do we take care of this menace? How do we all join hands to combat this threat? Let me go back to the DG speech. He made mention that NIDA has the mandate, the core mandate, to lead in the fight against cyber crimes, cyber security problems, from the technology perspective. But they can also not be able to do that all alone without the cooperation and collaboration of other relevant agencies like the Office of the National Security Advisor, the Federal Ministry of Justice, and the organized private sector. I just want to add a few things to what the DG has already laid on the floor. As part of the solutions to this menace of cyber crime, I think that we should adopt some proactive measures, like establishing a cyber security monitoring system as a basic infrastructure for checkmating this menace. And I also believe that we should also increase awareness creation by setting up forums, similar forums like this, to discuss the issues, the threats, and the solutions. I also believe that we should also encourage MDAs to embark on compliance checks, cybersecurity compliance checks, by ensuring that the systems that we use at the MDAs are actually, cybersecurity compliant, vis-a-vis making sure that basic securities are provided on the systems, information systems of government. I think this is also another aspect that NIDA can help us by providing the necessary regulatory frameworks and technology support to ensure that the MDAs, the information of government resident at the various MDAs, actually comply with the standards, the cybersecurity standards across the globe. And that's why I say that NIDA should actually take the lead role in galvanizing efforts to make sure that the necessary technological solutions and infrastructure is provided. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. On that note, let me quickly pick on a couple of points that have been raised by the CEO of NIDA. In particular, the issue of why we are so lucky not having affected significantly by the virus, the well-known ransomware virus. One of the questions that might come to mind is that why are we in that situation? Is it that we are so good in what we do, we are so conscious of what we are supposed to be doing, that we're in that position, or is it because we are not as well connected as those other countries? What are the things we're supposed to do to ensure that even if we are attacked, then we can actually take steps to fix the problem? What are, the earlier speakers also mentioned, there's no island in this. Everybody must work together. And if we're to work together, what are the things that different sectors of the economy got to do? What are the, how about the response facility that we have, that's the NGSAT at the National Security Advisor? Is it adequate for all industry? Different facets of the economy using it? Are the telecom companies using it? Are the bankers reporting to it? Who is reporting to? What is the situation today? These are some of the questions that should come to mind. And what are the basic steps that companies or government institutions in particular that are, if you like, more intense users of ICTs, what are they supposed to do? What are the checks that NIDA is supposed to be doing as an advisory agency to be able to advise properly for those agencies to put relevant mechanisms to protect their systems? What are the critical infrastructures that we need to protect? How do we protect them? What is the message that should come out from NIDA to be able to say this is what the citizens have got to do? When you are affected by this is what you've got to do, and so on. These are some of the discussions that I expect also to hear. So now, on that note, we're going to have space for only 3 questions, I'm told. 3 questions. I want to segment this room into 3. 1 question from this segment, 1 from this segment, 1 from that segment, if I may. So, can I see a show of hands, even before maybe I can even, rearrange that. Show of hands of those who want to ask questions or, in this respect, or who want to comment. We have one here, Dr. Sharif. Another, can we see a show of hands from this side? None? One from this side. So 2 questions, now they have given you a right to this segment. So 2 from this and 1 from that. So let me start by taking Dr. Sharif, his question and comment, because I'm sure he's got a lot to say. I mean, he has a lot to give in this discussion. So Dr. Sharif, please.
The chairman for the plenary session, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Actually, like he envisaged, mine is more of contribution. I like the phrase he used when he said, why are we so lucky that Nigeria is not affected much by the WannaCry ransomware? I think that's the right phrase to use. We are actually lucky. Perhaps because we are not as connected as the countries that were affected, or perhaps because we are not actually targeted. Well, I can't give the exact reason, but I think we should just consider ourselves lucky and then use this as an opportunity for a wake-up call. What are those things that we must do in order to ensure that in the event of subsequent attack, we are protected? For this, it is important to go back to the memory lane. For us to understand that the hackers that activated the WannaCry ransomware actually exploited just 2 tools from the range of tools that were leaked from the US National Security Agency. Yes, if they exploited just 2 tools, meaning there are other tools, that is the reason why a lot of IT security experts believe that this is just the starting point. And we at the Nigerian Computer Emergency Response Team, we have identified those tools that were leaked, and just like we have developed advisory for all our stakeholders for the WannaCry ransomware, we also want to go ahead and proactively develop advisory for our stakeholders to know what to do so that they can protect themselves from being exploited in the event of these hackers going back to the drawing board and exploiting those tools that were released. Then second, in terms of protecting critical national information infrastructure, the key aspect here is that it is impossible for one single agency to sit down and articulate or marshal a plan that will protect all infrastructure. No single agency will know even the infrastructure. Now, because of this, we identify the need to bring everybody on board. First, to identify those infrastructures that are critical and relevant to each sector. That's the starting point. If you don't identify this infrastructure, how do you go ahead to protect them? And to remind them, to insensitize the regulators and the key stakeholders in each sector that these infrastructure are primarily your responsibility. We are not saying we are going to protect it for them, but we will assist you to identify the necessary measures to put in place so that you can mitigate in the event of either inadvertent or deliberate attack. And that is exactly what we are doing. We have bring all the stakeholders together. We are about to commence the documentation of those infrastructure. I think almost every sector was covered. In fact, we're so happy that even some of the sectors that we inadvertently missed, they came in requesting that you did not include us in this forum. We want to participate in this forum. For example, the Nigerian Postal Service, the Nigerian Railway, they came on board by themselves, realizing that there is a need for a concerted effort towards comprehensive identification. Because the Cybercrime Act provided that the Office of the National Security Advisor is responsible for recommending to Mr. President to gazette this infrastructure as critical to the economy. Now, you cannot just wake up and recommend. That's why we bring everyone together, identify the infrastructure. And like I said earlier, we are championing this idea of local content. And that is why perhaps it took us a little bit longer to even deploy the portal for the documentation of this infrastructure. We determined that we are going to do it ourselves We don't want to give it to any foreign contractor to do it for us. Like I said, in cybersecurity, give it to a foreign contractor, then be rest assured that whatever you are protecting is also being exposed to that particular contractor, supposing or in the event of him taking advantage of you. I mentioned in my speech, I would like to elaborate the fact that the cyber monitoring platform at the Office of the National Security Advisor, specifically the Nigerian Computer Emergency Response Team, 3 years ago we obtained it from a foreign country, I'm not going to mention the name, at about $3.5 in addition to the annual license we pay. We identified last year that this cyber monitoring platform is not actually doing what we want to do because IT is evolving. It is not stagnant. So you cannot have one size fits all solution. And we identified that in order to tweak and improve this platform, we are limited because the contractors encrypt it. You have to contact them every now and then you want to improve the cyber monitoring platform. And we challenge ourselves. We identified some very good guys from all over the NDAs, about 4 or 5 of them. I'll tell you the good news, that 6 months after, we have completed phase 1 of this cyberspace monitoring platform, and it is doing much better than what we inherited from the foreign contractors. And this is the end of phase 1. We hope that at the end of phase 4, we will have integrated big data and artificial intelligence capability. And that is why I totally agree with the US ambassador when he says that what our Nigerians discover when they went to the US is the fact that we can do as much as they can do. So we have the potential. All we need to do is identify the guys that have this potential, encourage them, give them enabling environment, rather than dashing our money out to foreigners to come and develop every solution for us. Challenge our local talent to do it, and Jeremy, you will see wonders. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Sharif. From his comment, I guess he was not talking about $3.5. I think probably $3.5 million. That's what that was. But another point that Dr. Sharif keep mentioning is critical information infrastructure. Now, I want to say that cybersecurity is beyond that. Actually, it's beyond only information security. I mean, there are other infrastructures that actually we need to secure that are controlled by machines. You know, even water may not be regarded as information security, but it's controlled by machines. I mean, water flow, the dams, the power, all these are important infrastructure that can be shut down. So it is important that all infrastructure is critical infrastructure that is critical to our lives, to our economy, is taken on board. Any sector you are, there is something important there that is controlled by a machine, that if that machine is connected to internet, somebody can get into it and disrupt the services. Military, anything, even this watch that we're wearing, everything that you have, once it's connected, then it can be interfered with. If it can be interfered with, it means, but not all of them are critical, of course. If this was one interfered, I'll just throw it and maybe. But when it is something to do with your power system shutting down, or something to do with your water dams shutting down, or opening up, that is something very important. So these are critical things that we need to look at comprehensively and see how we protect each. What are the safeguards that we're going to have to protect it? Now, without taking that much time, now please keep your comments short, very short and concise. The next question from this end, you wanted to ask a question, please. And keep it short, please.
Just a contribution which is quite irrelevant to today. There's a basic item that says prevention is better than cure. Somebody actually mentioned the problem with NHS when computers were hacked. You'll find that in England the NHS computer system has not actually been upgraded for years. They're actually using Windows XP. And if that, you can transfer that to Nigeria, if any MDAs, any organization are still using old entry, you're actually exposing yourself to cybercrime because you have to upgrade it. It's expensive, but it has to be done.
So to reiterate, those are using systems that don't have patches for immediate upgrade. Microsoft systems like XP, which Microsoft is no longer supporting, then what is suggesting is that we need to upgrade to systems that are supported by relevant patches. So the next question, well, after this, I'm going to give the floor back to the panelists to see whether they have comment to respond to some of the issues that have been raised. You wanted to say something? Thank you.
I think for me, I just want to recall that when we had the last conference last year, we came up with some recommendations. Unfortunately, I don't know how we are dealing with our recommendations. And I'm saying this because we now have in this room the NSA's office. You are hosting the advisory committee. It's very important that when these conferences and recommendations come, that there has to be a forum where maybe we begin to look at what have we done since last year and what do we need to do on improving those recommendations from last year. And the second element is on the coordination between the NSA's office and other agencies, especially NIDA, because I don't know whether the two of you are also hosting the NGSAT, given that a country, only one NGSAT should exist in a particular country, if I'm correct. So we need to make sure that we are coordinating properly. The other thing for me is on the issue of, so what's happening with investigation, prosecution, and the judicial process. That came up very well last year. How are we dealing? Have we seen any prosecution in terms of people who are attacking our infrastructure, our cyberspace, or are we still at that stage where we just talk about it and we don't really get to do something about it? So thank you very much.
So I'm going to go around to the speakers to comment, but before then, the SAT issue, the NGSAT, one per state, one for the whole country as a state, may not necessarily be the only solution, by the way, but they will comment on that. But importantly, what I want to raise here is that some industries, particularly telecom that I know very well, they sometimes have issue of confidence to share information is an issue we need to look at and challenge ourselves how to deal with it. Will they be sending their problems to NGSAT? Is that what they're doing today? If they're not doing that, what is the solution? Do we have another mechanism that they will have confidence in to be able to deal with that?
Clear challenges. So that is what the illustrator or the batch is going on. Now, that is some of the things that we need to also debate at this forum. So, having one SAT
may not necessarily be the solution for all concerned. If it's not, what are the other solutions? This is a kind of forum that needs to talk about it. And with that, I would now go to the speakers, starting from the lead speaker, to get their comments on various issues that have been raised. Thank you. Dr. Fantani, please.
Good morning once again. I need to comment on the issues and questions raised, even superficially. The chairman of the panel started by asking some critical questions, and the acting director from the Office of National Security Advisor also raised some critical issues that I feel I should begin with them. Most importantly, about the first question, whether Nigeria was targeted or not targeted significantly, then I can say Nigeria was targeted significantly by even the WannaCry ransomware. It was targeted, no question about this. If you look at the map released by many cybersecurity experts, including Kaspersky Company, you will clearly see that as of Friday, up to Saturday, Nigeria was among the countries that was significantly targeted. There is no question about this. Nigeria was targeted significantly. Two, on Friday evening, I was in touch with even Redmond, the headquarters of Microsoft, discussing about the issue. They outlined to us clearly that Nigeria was among the countries that were targeted. Oh, you want to say so you want me to talk like this? Oh, okay. So I was in touch with the headquarters of Microsoft in Redmond on Friday evening and Saturday morning. And they confirmed to me that Nigeria was among the countries that were targeted specifically by WannaCry ransomware. Because of this, no question about this. Secondly, what actually protected the country? There could be many reasons, but some of them, I could say, the issue of proactive measure. When we discovered this before issuing a press statement, we reached to most of the MDAs that we realized were under danger secretly. Not all security issues will be discussed in public. So most of what we sent to them could be different from the press statement that the agency released. We alerted most of them to the extent that some MDAs slept in their offices over the weekend, trying to update their systems. For example, like those using Microsoft Windows XP, as observed by a colleague here, Windows 2003, Windows 8, all these three were targeted. So some of them slept in their offices trying to update their own operating systems. To the extent that Microsoft sent to us directly even the patches, the latest patches, and we emailed to all of them, requesting them to go there immediately. So this is what actually happened. This email was sent to most of the MDAs that we realized were under danger. And what will surprise you, among the agencies we sent to them, some ignored, did not do anything. And first thing in the morning, the information we got from Microsoft, they were affected. And they did not take any action. While they even got the email, they even got the press statement, but they couldn't take any action. They just ignored it and they were affected. I just don't want to disclose their names, but they were affected. They ignored all what was sent to them. So the situation, what I can see, maybe proactive measure is among the things that save this country. There could be many reasons, but for sure this is one of them. But for someone to look into it like Nigeria was not targeted significantly, I completely disagree with this. If you look at the map, even other countries that are not as important as Nigeria in Africa were targeted, like in North Africa, like in South Africa, and even in East Africa, countries were targeted there. All the agencies that were able to go to their offices over the weekend and update their operating systems and use the latest patches, most of them were secured and were safe. There could be many other reasons, as I said, but this could be one of them, which I think is very important. When you come to the issue of dealing with cybercrime, proactive measure is very important. It's one of the most critical things we should focus more on. Cybercrime is inevitable now, because the way you try to secure your space, it is the same way some people, or even higher than that, are putting more effort day in, day out to make sure your security is compromised. This is what they have been doing. So because of this, these challenges are inevitable, but what is most critical, at least if we cannot be technically ahead of them, then we should try to deploy proactive measures. Whenever something happens globally, let us try to see that we significantly reduce the damage in our country. And this can only be achieved by trying to be more and more proactive. All the agencies that were affected knew this, that need to send an email to them, press statement advising them, and we even provided a telephone line for them, an email, and all those that responded, we immediately sent relevant latest patches to them, and they deployed, they downloaded them, and they updated their systems, which I think is very critical, and I intended not to say this in public. However, the comments compel me to say. Secondly, about the issue of what a colleague here observed as well, which I think is very critical, that is, we should try to see that we update our operating system. It's one of the best ways. Those that were targeted mostly are within Windows XP, Windows 2003, and Windows 8. So this is one of the things I think we should emphasize more. Whenever there is a challenge, because initially Microsoft did not release any patch for Windows XP since March 2014, unless recently after this attack. But before, there was no any patch that was released to update the security of that operating system. So I think it's something that is very critical, and we should avoid using pirated copies, because in Nigeria we usually patronize them. You can even see an agency using pirated copy of even operating system, and by implication we are compromising the security of our country, which I think is very critical. We should avoid opening any unsolicited email unless if we know the actual sender. Sometimes it requires only 1 minute. At least if you are contemplating about who sent that email to you, just pick your call and contact him. If he confirms to you that this email is from him, you can open it. But sometimes we rush to open whatever comes to us. And as I said earlier, particularly as long as something related to money is mentioned, like $1 or $5 million. So whenever you see that, without thinking of anything, you just go ahead and open it. And I think it's very critical in each agency or department or ministry, they should have at least an IT security officer. You will see most of our MDS today, even a junior officer can format a hard disk and at the same time use pirated copy of operating system and continue using with the system. While at least if we are trying to be up to date, only IT officer or any relevant officer can have access to some critical information of that agency, even online. If you see any updated system, you cannot just go and do whatever you wish. You can't alter anything. But most of our MDS, they fail to comply. It is because of that we realize the speed of technology. In NIDA, we are working day in, day out to make sure all our standards and guidelines are updated. And I believe that by now we have achieved 80% of that, to try to make them world-class standards, so that we can have a minimum standards and guidelines for all MDAs to comply. We are working on that. The standards and guidelines I inherited were outdated. But what I have been doing now is to try to make them up to date. And I believe within this year we will finish with that work and we'll make them public, and all MDAs will be asked to comply accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fantami, for that explanation. Now, as Alias said, we're going to give the panelists, but due to time constraint, I think I will give to one of the panelists, one for if you like, snapshot comment before I close the session. Thank you. Mr. Ejike will be the person. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have 2 points I want to add to what the DG have already said. The first is that I want to commend the Office of the NSA for the concerted effort they have made so far in trying to develop local capacity to confront the cyber crime issues. But then again, I know that, just like the DG have earlier said, that NIDA is saddled with the core responsibility to develop local capacity in areas of information technology. And cybercrime is in no doubt a technology-based menace. And to that extent, I think that there should be a seamless collaboration between